Yes.
Yes.
Okay, welcome everyone. We're back for another round of Q&A sessions with filmmakers for our upcoming New Jersey International Film Festival, which will be taking place on 2 weekends in June. We will have screenings from June 4th through June 13th on the Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays between those dates. And we have, at this point, 9 programs with 25 films from around the world. And you can get information at our website, which is behind me at njfilmfest.com. When you get to our homepage, you'll see New Jersey International Film Festival summer, I think it says summer 2021 schedule. Click on that link, which will send you to that page, which will ask you to click on another link, which will send you to our Eventive website. As you may or may not know, because of COVID, our festival, which was supposed to take place at Rutgers University on those dates, has been shifted again to virtual. And so we will be holding the festival remotely. Films will be available for 24 hours to start watching. So for example, the film we're going to be focusing on today is Who the F is Roger Rassmeisl, is going to be taking place on Saturday, June 5th. You can start watching it at 12:01 Eastern USA time. And then you'll have 24 hours to finish watching it. Let's say you're a late night person and you want to watch this movie late on Saturday evening, June 5th. You can start watching it at 11:45 p.m. and you still will have 24 hours to complete watching the film. So movies are $12 for each program. And usually there's a short and a feature, or sometimes just a feature, or sometimes just a series of shorts for each program. And if you want to watch all of our movies, we have a great deal where you can get a festival all access pass for $75. Now today we have 2 of the makers of the wonderful film, Who the F is Roger Rassmeisl. Roger Rassmeisl was one of the great guitar makers. He made guitars for Rickenbacker, he made guitars for Fender, and we have the producer, Kaspar Glarner. Oh, I screwed it up.
Yes.
I screwed up, Glarner.
That's
Glarner, that's the right way. And Luc Quelin, they're reaching us from France. And Luc is in Paris and Kaspar is in the countryside enjoying the weekend sun. I want to welcome you gentlemen both to our Q&A. And I thank you so much for submitting your wonderful documentary to us. Welcome.
Thank you for your welcoming.
Okay, you guys. So you both are passionate about this subject, I can tell, because it's obvious that your film took a few years to complete. Can you tell us how long it took and why you decided to make this film? And you can answer, both of you can answer.
I'm going to start if Kaspar doesn't mind. My wife was bothered by my amplifier, Marshall, and my Fender Telecaster. So she offered me a Gibson, acoustic Gibson, a G45. And I look at who was behind Gibson, just in case, you know, because I'm very curious as a photographer. And I found that Gibson, in fact, was a brand since 1904, because Orville Gibson, who founded the company, sold it as soon as he mounted, in fact.
Really?
Yeah. It was a very, very strange thing, because he made a banjo for the gold rush. And then when the gold rush finished, he sold the company and went to New York to do other things. So businessmen bought the brand and they keep making Gibsons. And during the reading, I saw a name which was not very American, Rossmeisel. It sounds more like European, Middle European. And I said, oh, that's fun. Okay. And by curiosity, I jumped to Fender. I know Leo was making the guitars, but never mind. I just check again the history. And suddenly a name appeared, Rossmeisel. I said, ooh la la, what's happened? And then across the Santa Ana freeway to Rickenbacker, which is the opposite. Yeah. And I said, oh la la, Rossmeisel again. So is this the same guy? Yeah. Or are the families or relatives? So I tried to look in the internet, and there was not much, in fact, there. And a lot of there's a lot of renseignements with Wenzel, his father, who was a very famous guitar player, jazz guitar player during the 30s in Germany, but not much with Roger. So I asked my friend Kaspar, with whom I've done a lot of things, bands, fanzines. We are very aware of music, and I asked him. I said, "Oh, no, I find kind of a guy, a strange guy, who looked to have done very, very important business, very creative business, and no one talk about him. What happened? So can you look, because he was German, Roger, and German born, and so I said to Kaspar, can you look on the German side if you can find some informations?" And so I let him pursue the thing, because it's a strange and very interesting history. Vas-y, Kaspar.
Yes, Luc had already started to write a scenario, to start to write the film,
Right.
and you even showed this scenario to many production companies, saying this is an interesting subject, an interesting personality to make a film about, and nobody was really interested. And suddenly I thought that maybe I could be helpful, because as I'm from Switzerland, from Zurich, which is the German-speaking part of Switzerland, I could maybe ask in Germany, where I have some friends, if they know about this Rossmeisl, about his childhood, about his apprenticeship. And that's the way I've started to meet collectors, and there are very few but very important collectors in Germany who know about Rossmeisl, the father and son, but much more about the jobs they did, the work they did in Berlin before the war and after the war. And then they knew that Rossmeisl left Europe in the 50s, and very few people knew that he went to America and worked for Gibson, Rickenbacker, and Fender. So the story was kind of cut in two pieces. There was the European part, and there was an American part. And just 5 minutes ago, before we started to speak together, I was on the Wikipedia page, and it's still the same information you can find there about the apprenticeship in Mittenwald, which is also a very interesting story. And finally, I think what we have managed to do, and it's really a pleasure to do it, it's to build the bridge between the old European knowledge of instrument making in Bohemia, which is from the 17th century, violin making, to America, California, where Rickenbacker and Fender were doing these fantastic instruments. And this is probably the most interesting journey of our work.
Well, can you tell me when you began working on this project then? Luc, when did you start writing the scenario? And
around 2015.
Right, so this project took five years to complete.
Yes. So because I write the scenario, as Kaspar said, and we spend the whole year looking for a thing and looking for appointments with musicians, with a production and thing. And I've got, by an American friend, I've got an appointment with Lemmy Kilminster, who is a great user of Rickenbacker. And we email, and he said, "Oh, come on, guy, in January 2016, you can come, because I finished the tournée, And unfortunately,
he passed away.
Before Christmas 15, he dies.
He passed away.
So we got very, it was a strange feeling, because we say, if we don't make the film now, all the guys we are interested in, maybe they can pass away during the shooting.
Yeah, there's always that worry.
Wait, so we were quite afraid, and I said, okay, nobody wants the film, we'll do it anyway. So we find some money, and we start.
That was my next question. I mean, you have so many wonderful guitarists that you interview, and after I watched your film, I went to eBay just to see how many of these guitars were actually available, and ones in good condition they go from really a lot of money. And so I mean, I was curious. Your film made me want to know more about the types of, even though I'm not an accomplished guitar player, I used to play the drums when I was in bands. But as I mentioned earlier, my brother used to have a Rickenbacker 4001 bass. And so I was aware of Rickenbacker, but I didn't know the fellow who was instrumental in giving it its very flashy look. And so I think, you know, Bill Frisell, who I saw in concert before COVID, he still pulls out his famous, I guess it's one of the acoustic Fenders that he used one night.
Yes.
So he's very proud.
Yes.
Inline, yes.
Yeah, he's very proud of it. So, okay, so you were also able to work with Rossmeisel's estate and family, and were they supportive in the endeavor? Did they help you? I mean, obviously you got access to home movies, and so can you tell me more about the process of making
Kaspar.
Yeah, it's fun because we wrote to Roger Rossmeisl's son, who is also called Roger, who lives in Los Angeles, and we knew by all these German guitar collectors that he did never really reply. He wasn't really interested to speak about his father. And suddenly one night, he replied to one of our emails saying he would come to Paris to visit family in Paris and maybe we could meet. And that's the way we met him and his family in Paris.
Wow. And
we spoke about, and we had some pictures we could find in an archive, in the famous dress archive. For us famous, it's not famous at all, but for us it's important because there is an archive of the family dress. These were very young people who lived on the opposite side in an apartment in Munich. They were neighbors to Roger's father and his second wife. And when both had died, they had the heritage was boxes of pictures, of family pictures, which Claudia Dress never knew what to do with. She didn't even know that he had a son. And so we could show some of these pictures to Roger Jr. and he was of course very moved, and we are very moved. And suddenly we could enter and make this contact, and he accepted that we come to his house in California, and he showed what he had, and we could show what we could find in Germany.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story also because of the tragedy of the family life for Roger, because you know, his experience in the USA was one that was obviously difficult for him because of his failed marriage, right? Because he ended up going back to Berlin. So his séjour, or his stay in the US, was about 15 years.
20 years.
20 years.
Right.
And so his son Roger stayed in the United States, right? He never went back with him.
No. Roger left.
Right.
I'm sorry. Roger left like a thief. You know, he went up to the rehab.
Yeah.
Asked his mother, who was still living in Berlin, to send him some money because he was completely broke.
Yeah.
They got plane ticket, and then from Arizona, from rehab, Tempe, he went straight away to Berlin. So it's quite sad, in fact. It's very tragic. Yes.
You have another important factor in the beauty of your film is that you have an exceptional narrator and a person who is doing the voiceover and who also passed away recently. Bruno Ganz is a wonderful actor, mostly known for his films, Werner Herzog films. How were you able to get him to be on board for the project?
This is also, we call him a guardian angel, you know, because we try to meet him, and as I'm working in theater and opera, I had some friends in Berlin who were working in the Schaubühne Berlin, which is a famous theater in Berlin, and they knew him. And I asked them if they could maybe give him a little piece of paper where we write the story we would like to tell. But because Luc and I, from the beginning, we thought our narrator should be Bruno Ganz, because he has a voice He has this German accent when he speaks English, like Roger would maybe have, you know. So this, for us, it was clear from the beginning. But we knew through his agent that Bruno wasn't doing student films anymore or small productions, or, you know, because he has no time. And we were really surprised to hear that he would accept to speak this voice, because obviously he was very moved by the story. And one thing we didn't know, that in his close family, his son was playing Rickenbacker guitars. So this was in the family something very important since many years. And that's really, it's we call it hasard, you know, you cannot
chance, yeah.
It's a chance.
But I think
more than chance. More than chance.
And I love the fact that you call him a guardian angel. He's because of Wings of Desire, because he plays a guardian angel.
Of course.
So and he's in the film on the. There's also a poster, American Friend. Maybe you have seen it.
Yes, of course. Yes, that's
in the apartment.
In Vender's film. Yes, it's a fantastic movie.
The apartment is a whole story also to tell. Maybe later we'll speak about.
Yeah, sure. So, but Bruno was able to do the voiceover for you, and because of his passion for or interest in Rossmeisel's work. So that also brings a lot of clout to your film, because I think when you want to try to sell your movie, I think the fact that you have him, was it one of the last films that he worked on?
No, the last one was Lars von Trier's film.
Oh yeah,
and that's it.
But the date when we came out with our final version was the last film he was working on. So
right, did he get to see it? Did he get to see them?
No, and of course some pictures, but we didn't really speak much about the film with him. Of course, we spoke about the content and the story, but
dialogues.
But we didn't speak about the pictures. We didn't speak about
the found footage, or the footage that you use. That's the home movies. Was it mostly Super 8, or was it a mix of 16mm and Super 8?
No, it was Super 8. Super 8 given by Roger Jr.
Really?
And by Chris Welch, the English journalist of the Melody Maker.
Right.
Who gave us the Zeppelin seconds. It was very incredible.
I think the footage of Pete Townsend playing also, that I always wonder how expensive it is to be able to license some of the footage, or were you able to get it for free? Because that's always one of the real issues with any kind of documentary. You pay through the nose for, and musicians and bands, they charge you a lot for their stuff, because
the only archive we really had to pay for was Pete Townsend. But this is interesting because it's a French documentary about the crazy English music, you know. So it was more like a negative sequence about these crazy young musicians in a French archive at the Institut National de l'Audiovisuel, l'INA. And we could buy it really for not expensive. I would say a few $100s.
That's excellent. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Another high point of your film is the soundtrack. Not the existing bands that you record, but the ambient music is done also by a really famous and wonderful guitar player. Why don't you tell us more about him?
Once the film was almost finished, we organized a projection in London, because we all like London, and at the Regent Street Cinema, which is a very old cinema, very famous, and in a Polytechnic school in Regent Street. And we tried to invite the people in the movie and some friends, friends of friends of friends. And George, the one of the guys who was in the film, with his Rickenbacker, at the end of the projection said, there's not enough music in it. And we say, but music is money. You understand the problem?
Yeah.
So we can't afford more music because we don't have any more money. That's as simple as this.
Yeah.
And so he said, if you don't mind, I can do the music for you, because the film is very moving, very nice. It reminds me my parents' story, the thing coming up from somewhere to go to somewhere else. So with Kaspar, we say, that's very, very nice of him.
Yeah.
So he works on his side. And 6 months later, he came in Paris in a studio, and we record. He had the pieces, and in 2 days we record the whole thing, and then it was very exceptional for us, you know.
Yeah, and it sounds great. And how do you pronounce George's last name? So I don't.
George. Sorry, George Vigestica.
Vigestica. He's a Nick Cave's player. He's a
Nick
Cave
on the Bad Seeds. He's the guitar player.
Yeah.
And we contact him. He's our second guardian angel. Because we have contacted him first because we wanted to speak about his Fender Villager acoustic 12-string guitar.
Yeah.
Because we knew he plays on this. And when we called him, he was completely surprised. And he said, "That's incredible. You are working on this guy who made my favorite guitar ever, which is the Rickenbacker 360F. We didn't know that he had this guitar." And he was looking for this guitar more than 20 years all over the world, because there were only 10 units built in the 50s.
Right, he says that.
And he was looking for this guitar all over the world. In each city, he was in New York, everywhere. And finally, he found one in the village in England, the village next door, maybe a few miles away. There was one, and he bought it. And this is the way he was completely enthusiastic to speak about his guitar, and later to play this music all on Rossmeisl instruments. The whole music you are hearing in the movie is all played on Rossmeisl guitars.
That's even better. I didn't know that, but I could tell it sounded a little bit like it, but I wasn't 100% sure. And you know, I think for me, when I watch this film, you kind of dive into this person's life, and a person who most people don't know, unless you're absolutely a guitar fanatic, right? But I think the thing that I discovered, and another track or a theme that I found connecting the sequences in your film, is how these guitar players talk extensively about their love affair with their guitar. You know, I mean, there's one guitar player who kind of poo-poos that idea. Oh, I'm not in love with my guitar, but you could tell that he was anyway.
Yeah.
But I think, was that something that was conscious when you were working on the film, that you wanted to almost anthropomorphize or humanize the guitar as this, not a fetish object so much, but as something that was living, or like? Well,
first we choose the first generation of musicians using these guitars, you know, Roger McGuinn, Tom Petty, and they all declined to say, "Oh no, that's not good. Small film, you know." They weren't very interested. So we changed for the new bands who plays on old guitars, on vintage guitars, made directly with Roger. And so they were enthusiastic. And so they say, "Okay, that's a solution." So we choose the band who were pleased with the music, you know, and then we call and they say, "Okay, super, that's a great idea." So that's it. It's very easy, in fact.
I think it's better to do it that way too. You know, our film festival likes to champion films that are you know, very important, but maybe don't get the attention they deserve. So we're a lot like your film, and our film festival is very humanist, and we like to celebrate man and in all of his glory, not in his stupidity. But you know, that's why we really liked your film and found it to be fascinating. And
but maybe you know about the way you question the way how they speak about their instruments, all these fantastic musicians. It was in fact very intimate, because Luc was coming with a very small camera, you know, so we could go close to them, and there was no artificial light. We only had one camera, and I was asking questions, but we are a small team of two, you know, with one third-person sound engineer. So it was a very intimate atmosphere always, and they appreciated, and they were very friendly and very private. And this was we were so lucky, you know, to approach them so friendly. And many of them did never speak about their guitars like they do in the film. For example, Michael Park's Old and Witches. it's so fantastic, you know, his instrument, his guitar was cut away, and then it was inversed, and then it was then it and the social security number was crushed into the duo plate,
and a piece of leather on the back, and the piece of leather.
It's like a ruin, you know. At the end of the film, it's only a ruin. The bass, but he's so attached to this instrument that it was very moving. And this is kind of the transmission we wanted to find. You know, what's left from Roger.
Yeah, and I think you did a great job. And we've run out of time for our Q&A, but I wanted the Q&As are meant to try to entice our audience to come and check out the film for themselves. It's feature-length documentary. You'll see all sorts of fascinating information, and really about how you'll learn about how guitars are made as well. I mean, there's interviews with people from the various entities where Roger worked who remember him, and also talk about the craftsmanship. So it's really a wonderful documentary, and you absolutely must come and join us on June 5th as part of the New Jersey International Film Festival. We're proud to, I guess we're premiering this film in our area, correct? And so we're proud to show it off to our audiences. And I'm going to share screen so I can show folks how to be able to do this. Let's share the screen just really quickly. You guys can see this, right? You go to our homepage, which is njfilmfest.com. Then you would click on New Jersey International Film Festival Summer 2020 schedule. And then it asks you to click again on this link, which sends you to our beautiful website. Super. And then to be able to purchase tickets for the Who the F is Roger Rossmeisl. We're showing a short experimental film right before or after. You can show them whichever way you want. You would click on this and you can pre-order the film right now if you're interested. So that's how you would do it. I stopped the sharing. And I want to say thank you to both Luke and Kaspar for joining us today. And,
thank you, Al.
And we look forward to screening your film to our audiences. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.